So by now, you know that this whole theme about creating a generational love cycle comes from my experience with pain. As a young girl, speaking for advocating for my mother that my father was abusing her, seeing that anger wasn't the only state that a human being could be in. When I would see my father one day when I was I had swallowed a fish bone. I was eating fish at the table, one of the foods I love to this day, all kinds of fish. And I had swallowed a fish bone. My mother yelled to my father, and he came in and swooped me out of my chair, placed me, feet first on the floor next to the bathroom. He put one arm around me, and in another arm, he fed me pieces of bread so that I could swallow that fish could glide down my throat without causing much harm. And I that day in that moment I was just in awe because there was a part of me I know that saw this anger, and I remember him being angry at me for sharing that secret that he abused my mother. He was abusing my mother. And I was in awe to see another side of him. So that was an open door for me that, we don't have to be angry. And I even though I couldn't articulate it at that time, the seed had been deposited in my mind. And for me to experience to have my own pain experience, my own personal experience where my body was misused by a couple of family members, and wanting to basically understand this cycle of pain and how best to understand it than to actually go through it, to go through the dark wilderness and to be an observer of life, and how I would see anger flowing through the faces of many people, including family members, how I would hear the howling of the anger as it burst through mouths and said, vicious word and leaked vicious words. I wanted to understand more about that. So it really is not a surprise that I came up with this podcast of creating a generational love cycle, because my solution to pain is that you don't have to continue to live in it. You don't have to, my thoughts about pain, you don't have to continue to live in it. You can break the cycle of pain by this, by getting rid of the thoughts that created it in the first place. And I believe the way that we do that, one way, is by reminding people who they are. These virtues that we hear about, love and compassion, thankfulness, tolerance, they are not outside of us. The Bible tells us that God made us in his image and that he is love. And love encompasses all of these virtues that I've been discussing over the past few weeks with you, that I've been discussing with my children, and using this time to really to bring out character, because they have it, but to bring it out and remind them that experiences do not need to define you, that these virtues can be the tools in your book bag that you carry along your life journey, and use them to continue to strengthen your foundation, to plaster walls that break down, through different experiences, and to really embody your spiritual nature. I believe that as we go through life, we are to evolve into our highest form, and that is the very spirit that created us in the first place. That we have different personalities and different experiences that we go through that are opportunities, not to make us bitter, but to make us better, to bring out the best in us. And along this journey, many of us have the opportunity to bring children along in this world. That I originally had the thoughts of fear to bring children here because I thought the world was so violent. I remember thinking that in my St. Louis apartment. And not too long after that, I said, wait a minute. My mother shared a lot of her life experiences. I built a lot of my foundation around her principles and what I saw throughout life, what I experienced, the treasures, the gifts that I have. And I can, instead of being fearful about raising children of my own, I began to have this hope that I can help make the world a better place through them. So today I am not alone in talking about the seed of thankfulness. That is the virtue that we've been actually spending a couple of weeks on. I did not talk about it last week because there was an incident that came up, and my son is here. We were in the store, in the restaurant actually, and sharing it with you as he wants to cover my mouth. That that he forgot to say thank you. He didn't say thank you when the waitress brought him something, and I was like, okay, we need to pause right now and um, spend a little bit more time on what thankfulness means. I think one of the things that I've shared in another podcast is that gratitude became the two-way fence of keeping my innocence, of preserving myself through everything that I've been through, as well as keeping the predators away. You know, keeping fear and anxiety at bay, often because of remembering who I am, of cultivating and taking care of my inner garden. That yes, it's been tough, but those experiences have um, helped me to grow more of a conviction to becoming better, to evolving to the highest form of myself, and bringing my children up in that foundation, in that, those virtues that we have in us. So I have Cameron Chambers. Cameron, if you'll say hi.
Hi.
Here to join me. And Cameron is, how old are you, Cam?
11.
You're 11, but you have a birthday coming up. And so he'll be the big 12. And so I shared that. I don't think Cam was thinking I would share it, and I was debating whether or not to share that or not. But I want to let you know that it's not candy and dandy here in the Chambers household. We go through periods of growth, right? Maybe and how many times have you discussed things with your children and they go and do the opposite? I mean, that still happens in my life. It still happens in people that I tutor. You tell them something, and 1 minute they're doing something different. So I love the parent-child relationship, because whatever you teach, you end up reinforcing in yourself. And so Cameron and I have talked about a few questions that I'm going to ask him today in this podcast. And we were talking about thankfulness and just being grateful, gratitude. And one of the things I've been encouraging my children to do is to say what they're grateful for at night. To think more about the many blessings, you guys, because when I have put it in perspective, that you may have a child that screams and hollers that is getting bad grades, or not getting, really helpful grades, but at least you have a child. you know you there have been times where I lived in my apartment when I first started, and I had just enough money to pay the bills, but at least the bills were paid. So gratitude actually helps you to think about in a more positive way what you have. And one of the things that I've shared in one of the memoirs that I've worked with is that a whole chapter on gratitude. And many people say, well, how can you be grateful? That was a traumatic or potentially traumatic experience in your life, but it taught me so much. It taught me so much to be grateful for, that I was alive, that I read the Bible, and just a list of, I believe, over 100 things that I list that I'm grateful for. But and you seeing me, I'm sitting with my child, one of my child, and Kayla is actually in the background. And there are things that I do share with them because I want them to know. I want to be as open as possible, minding, um, keeping in mind of their age, and putting it in such a way that they can understand it and not have to to give all of this very personal information, but to give them enough information to help them to make the right choices in life. So, Cameron, you ready? He's nodding his head, so you can't see him. That's the good thing about podcasts. So we're gonna ask, and Cam, feel comfortable because I know Cam will start talking, and he'll just keep talking, and sometimes, you look at him, you're just like, okay, wow, Cam. So, what do you think about us going over virtues like thankfulness? We've been trying to do it now for over a year, almost a year. What do you think about us going through virtues? Do you think that's something that's helpful to do?
Yes,
And can you share why do you think it's helpful?
because well, it's really just going over things, some things that we've learned, some things that we haven't learned, and most of the time, us reading it helps with memory because you're just asking, okay, what was the word? What did the word mean? Explain it in your own words.
Explain it in your own words, because I am a true teacher at heart, that I believe that until we make the information our own, we can't really apply it to life. And so thank you for bringing that up, because we've had conversations, and that's the first time that Cameron has said that, is that make the information your own. That was a very good point, Cameron. What does thankfulness mean to you, though? When we talk about thankfulness, what does it mean to you?
Basically, thanking someone for something that you have been given to you.
Right. Thanking, like, what can you give examples? Like, what are some things you're thankful for?
Books.
Books?
Yeah, the books in my room.
The books in your room. Why?
Because most of them are like Japanese books and cookbooks, and most books about like the years and stuff. I especially like the that one book that had all the zodiacs and stuff.
Had all the what now?
All the zodiacs and stuff. The
Zodiac signs and things of
20
nature.
21
So you
years
mentioned,
and climatic or something.
okay. So you sorry about that. So you mentioned thankfulness and being thankful for what someone gives you, their service. Because when people do stuff, and that's one important thing when we talk about thankfulness, I believe there are so many people in the world that believe that you owe me something because you are my parent, because you are this title or someone, that you owe me stuff. And we have to remember that thankfulness is really about respecting the other person's time, their energy, their money, because they could be doing something else. So whether it's a waitress that is bringing out your food, a cook, chef, one of the things that I think about with thankfulness, Cam, is that often we don't know, when we hear about stories and news, we find out that some people are going through certain things.
We don't know what people's days are like, basically.
Yeah.
Their day or their life has been like. So maybe they've had a rough time or didn't get attention in childhood, so they'll try to get attention. Or if they had a rough time, they're going to give others a rough time.
Right. And so you don't know what other people have been through. That's the other thing about gratitude or thankfulness, is that you're keeping an open mind about them. So you're keeping an open mind about them. And so again, thankfulness is about respecting the individual. And I was going to say another thing is that, one of the things I think about with thankfulness is that you never know, Cam, that what you go through, what could have happened. We make it home sometimes from events, parks, and restaurants, that, some people have been in car crashes,
Yeah,
hospitalizations. And that's even something to be thankful for, because I know your father, my husband, he'll say that. Thank you, God, for getting us home safely.
because you make a choice, but you don't know what would happen if you chose the other choice. So, say you chose to drive home the long way instead of making a shortcut. The shortcut could have a bumpy road. There could have been a sinkhole. There could have been like some people, uh, probably like a gang in that alleyway or something.
Right. And then, so you never know that sometimes we get these thoughts, I believe is nature. It's God that's talking to us, that will tell us, hey, take this road instead of that road.
Yeah, and the thing is, once it's done, you'll start to wonder, what if I went the other way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would have happened if I gone the other way? So that in itself is something to be thankful for. And I often say that in every experience, there's something to be thankful for. Something. You can find something. And even that can bring light to your day. Even that can bring peace to your mind or peace to your heart. And the more you're in thankfulness, the better it is. Another point that I tell my children, Cam and Kayla, and myself, something I've been practicing since I was a little girl, and is that I prayed that God um, would enlighten me, show me those things to be thankful for. And so I could be cooking, I could be going to the bathroom, I could be just saying I'm thankful for my walk, being able to walk. I could say I'm thankful for being able to talk, being able to see. So we don't have to wait. Often we'll say, well, wait till nighttime or wait till early morning to write down what you're thankful for.
Yeah, because then you'll just forget it.
You can forget it. You can forget it.
I've done that
Right.
times. Like I can be like, Mom, you're like, wait 1 second, and I'm like, then I forgot it. And then you're like, okay, what were you saying?
Right. And so that could be the same way with thankfulness and that's why it's so important to, as soon as you can mentally say thank you. You can say it out loud, thank you. My children are hear me, thank God. And then they'll say, what are you thanking God for? And so I'll go into that. But let's talk about, do you think children should learn to be thankful?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think thankfulness does to you then?
So basically,
What do you think
when
it
your
does for you?
parents do something for you and they took their time out of their day to do it for you, I think just hearing them say thank you,
Yeah, hearing somebody else say thank you.
even
But
if it was like just a little,
yeah, thank you, like voicing. He just voiced it, so you couldn't see his mouth. He's just like, thank you. But what do you think, this thankfulness, what does it do to you? What do you think it does for you, though?
happy.
It makes you feel happy when
Yeah.
you tell someone thank you.
Yeah. It makes you feel happy and it makes them feel happy.
So it's like a win-win. Gratitude is a win-win. So I'm going to ask, of course, thank you. This thank you broadcast would not be, or podcast would not be enough if I didn't ask you, Cam, if you could list 5 things that you're thankful for. 5 things. And Cam would say at nighttime, we'd pray, and then I would
would always
ask him,
say
breathing.
and air.
Air. So
And then if she said I couldn't say either of those things, I would probably go like apple.
right, food. But he's been getting better and saying more and more that he's thankful for. So there's so much that we can be thankful for. We don't need to we can say it, but the more you realize, because gratitude is about acknowledging your life and acknowledging there's more to life than what you're experiencing. So Cam, what are 5 things? And you could just use your hands or wherever you want to do it, because I want 5 things that you are grateful for. And if you could speak louder for us so we can make sure we hear it. 5 things.
A house.
Grateful for a house. We still have our house.
Trees. Because
Trees.
that's how we get paper. And that's how birds.
He said, so trees, paper, birds. Go ahead. What else?
Electricity.
Electricity.
Because if we didn't have electricity or the sun, the whole world would be dark.
Yeah.
And cold.
And cold. So that's 3 things, right? Did I count it right? 3 things?
Yes.
So what are 2 more things that you're grateful for?
Books.
Books?
Because books hold knowledge.
The books hold knowledge. I like that. And one more?
Some of them.
one more? Memory. Cam has a great memory. He can remember when he was little. My sister-in-law noticed. She said you were over her house and you came in and something happened. He was like 2 or so, and he remembered something at the next visit. And she said, "Man, Cam has a good memory." And we've just noticed that, and we've been reinforcing that. So, and been saying thank you. For me, thankful to the universe for blessing Cam with such a good memory. That he has.
Sometimes I'll forget stuff. Then the next day or the next week or so, I'll be like, oh, or sometimes at night when I'm about to go to sleep and I can't do anything about it, and I'm like, maybe it's something I need to write down, or I'm comfortable in my bed and I'm trying to go to sleep. Then it just hits me, and I'm like, oh,
Right,
I'm
right.
going to sleep. I won't remember this in the morning.
So, just and thank you so much, Cam, for being here. Cam is not one who will just be kind of there in the front, just like me, talking about stuff. We're pretty much kind of insiders, if you will.
Sometimes, when I'm playing something crazy happens. It's not recorded. And so basically what I'll do is I'll talk over stuff even if I'm not recording. So I'll basically go like, okay, so I'm about to do this, and so even though I'm not recording, I have to get used to it.
So he
I'm just
right.
used to it so much. So sometimes I'll go like, okay, I'm about to mine down here. There's this. There's here is right here. I found this here. Found that there. And so basically, it's just you gotta act like you're recording.
You got to act like you got to do it. Sometimes you have to do what you got to do. So I want to thank you for being here today to talk about your input on gratitude. I do appreciate that. This is create a generational love cycle where it's more than just about me, but the legacy that we're leaving and how we're impacting our children to make the world a better place, to be the light in the world, to help others remember who they are. And one way we can do that is gratitude. Gratitude, you guys, I've seen it where faces change from anger to feeling valued. And I used to tell my students that when before you want someone to change or to do something that you want them to do as a nurse, they have to feel valued. They have to feel important. And so our children feel important, I believe, when we speak, when we talk with them,
Yeah, when they get attention,
when they get
when they're being
attention,
cared for,
when they're being
when
cared for.
someone is being loved, they don't want that love to go. So they'll basically be attached to that person. Once that person sees, oh, they'll try and use you.
Yeah. And so
That's not every person.
that's not everybody, but gratitude helps. It just really helps to foster relationships and people again feel valued. So thank you so much for listening today to create a generational love cycle, the seeds we plant series where I'm discussing virtues and have been very fortunate to have my son to speak on that and what thankfulness mean to him today. Just think about, what does thankfulness mean to you? How can you be more grateful? How can you turn gloom situation you think are gloom or hurtful, how can you turn those around to be more light, to open up the light that is in you, to be more grateful for the life that you have now and the opportunities that you have to help others, to not project the pain that was projected on you, but to project love, to express love. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, Tamika, I am on Fulfill Your Divine Purpose Facebook community where I share helpful tips to help us to not only just to live our purpose, but also to take care of ourselves in the process, to make sure that we are enjoying the fruits of our labor.